Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. This is The Next Reel on rashpixel.fm, everybody. I'm Pete Wright, and that over there is Andy Nelson.
Howdy, Pilgrim.
And we spoil movies. Tonight on the show, the second in our 2016 edition of our Films of 1939 series with John Ford's Stagecoach. Before we get into that, you should learn more about us at thenextreel.com. Subscribe to the show on iTunes or follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel. And if you've ever flaunted your dominance over nature by throwing small rocks at your horses, then you're the kind of wrangler that ought to try out for The Next Reel's Instagram, #PonyPrize, #GuessTheMovieChallenge.
And since Stephen Smart is drunk on the floor after drinking all the Meek Gin salesman's booze, I'm here to fill you in this week again and let you know that the movie was Adam's Rib. That's right, everybody. It was the George Cukor film from 1949, 10 years after he made our favorite, the Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn, Judy Holliday film. And it was none other than Brendo61 who figured it out on, I think, Image 3. So congratulations, Brendo61. You are once again entered to win the 2016 Pony Prize.
And we've got some follow-up. We've got a new blot spot.
Yes, we do. Did you guys read my review on Letterboxd before recording this show? You totally matched almost every single point and opinion I expressed.
Yeah, brother, sing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, no, we didn't read your review. The Women was tedious, frustrating, and disappointing. I was with Andy and actually enjoyed some moments from the movie, but overall it was a tough one to get through. The idea of a film with only women is so promising. Too bad this is what we get from that premise. Your rank 230, my rank 214. So he didn't hate it as much as
not as
we
much,
did, but it still is way down there on the bottom of the list.
And with that, Andy, it's time. Let's do trailers.
So, Pete.
Yes, sir. I never expected that you would pick a trailer like this.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know if I'll ever watch this movie. I really don't know if I'm going to ever watch this movie. It's Pop Star. Never Stop, Never Stopping.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
It is a, it looks like just kind of the perfect mockumentary comedy send-up of Justin Bieber and that sort of pop star. And it just looks so absurdly silly. And it's also very much a Red Band trailer. But it really had me laughing. It was so raunchy. Andy Samberg plays Connor for real. the titular pop star who, I guess when his new album fails to sell records, pop/rap superstar Connor for real goes into a major tailspin and watches his celebrity high life begin to collapse. He'll try anything to bounce back, anything except reunite with his old rap group, the Style Boys. So it sounds like a narrative film, but the trailer really makes it feel like a mockumentary. So I'm not quite sure exactly what's going to happen with this, but it just looks absurd. It's brought to us by The Lonely Island. I'm not familiar with The Lonely Island.
Oh, no, that's his band.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, no, that's Adam
Sandberg's real band.
Adam Sandberg's or Andy Samberg's band.
Yeah.
And yes. They have a couple of CDs out, and they used to do the shorts on SNL, and I'm on a boat, and yeah, I mean they've got some really funny stuff.
Well,
if you're into that kind of thing,
clearly I'm not, because I had no idea. But Andy Samberg, Akiva Schaffer, and Jorma Taccone wrote this, and then Akiva and Jorma are directing this, and it looked like it is quite the thing for everybody to be in. We've got Sarah Silverman in it. We've got Imogen Poots. We've got Tim Meadows is in there. We've got
he's really funny.
He's great. And Martin Sheen, Joan Cusack. It's a crazy group of people in this, and it just looks absurdly funny. It looks like something that I probably won't watch because I don't know. It's one of those things where it looks really funny, but also just looks like exactly what they're spoofing.
Yeah.
It's like, is he really making fun of it, or is he just one of them now?
Yeah, right. Let me tell you why I'm going to give it a shot. I'm not going to see it in the theater. I can just about guarantee you. So the quicker they go to digital release, the better for them, if they want my money. But Sandberg does Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And Andy, I'm not kidding. That's a funny show.
Yeah.
It's absurd, but it's funny. It's really funny. I laugh at that show. I'm out. I've outed myself. It is a funny show. And so I I feel like that has given me a sort of, it's opened the door. It's opened the door for me to consider pop star.
Wow.
Always popping, never stopping. Never stop, never stopping. That's
never stop, never. No, it's not. There's no period. It's
never stop, never stopping. That's right. There's no period. Oh my gosh. I'm going to never stop, never stopping.
There you go.
Yes.
Never stop, never stopping.
I get it. I didn't even get it, and I thought it was funny.
That's pretty funny.
When's it come out?
It's pretty funny. This comes out June 3rd. So yeah, it'll be a summer musical smash.
Well, speaking of musicals, my trailer is Captain America Civil War. Now, we've talked about Captain America Civil War before. I don't know if you remember that, Andy. It's kind of a big deal.
Is this the revised trailer musical edition?
Yes, the music. United we stand, divided we fall, the musical.
Wow.
Yes. No, not at all. It's trailer 2 week. They just dropped trailer 2. And first of all, I think the trailer looks great. We get to see more of the characters that are in this thing. We get to see the Vision. We get to see more Black Panther. As far as I can see, it looks like War Machine is dead in the trailer. That may have given away too much. We saw
that in the first trailer.
Was that in the first trailer already? Yeah. Anyway, I feel like that's been out a lot. The whole thing I wanted to talk about is just how awesome the marketing is, and I think they have such the beautiful work to pull from in the comic that I think they have just really leveraged here with a lot of these characters. The poster work is done by BLT Communications, and I don't know when the last time you went over to Internet Movie Poster Awards was and looked at BLT Communications. We used to talk about this more on this show, like the people behind the posters.
Yeah.
This is that team that has done everything.
Oh, yeah.
They are the conglomerate that does all the posters from all time forever. And so they've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of posters that they've done. And a lot of them have the same kind of thing. Where they really excel is that sort of vibrant, big head drama, you know. But as far as I can tell, they're behind a lot of the big superhero movies. They did Ant-Man. They do all the Marvel stuff. But they also did Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man. And so anyway, it just looks really good. I think this is one of those that the marketing people have just nailed it for this film. I'm very excited about it. I don't even know much from the movie, but I think that it is well placed and well articulated marketing. That's my thing.
Well, James Gunn saw it and he said it's his favorite Marvel film, and that was before the effects were even done. And he said that this is his favorite Spider-Man.
You know, I don't know what to say to Spider-Man.
I don't know what to say to any of that because
Spider-Man's not your favorite?
I love Spider-Man, and I thought this kid's voice was way too tiny and squeaky.
I think it's funny that you commented on the voice and not the fact that he has a little tiny pimple of a logo on his chest and his eyes move.
Yeah, they do move.
I had a problem with that.
Crazy. I had a problem with a lot of the Spider-Man stuff.
Yeah, I had a problem with that. I'm going to give that a little bit of a pass because I am such a fan of the Russos. They have a lot of credibility in my book. I love that they're doing it. And you know what? I think they're also behind this TV show that was canceled that my wife and I just finished binging. Have you heard of this Happy Endings?
I mean, I've heard of it. I've never watched any of it.
I think these guys. I think they. It's really. It's very funny.
They're also slated to do a possible Ghostbusters sequel already.
They were executive producers behind I think the first season, and it was a really funny show. Happy Ending. So these guys, they can do funny, they can do action. They're just all around talents, and I was so excited after Winter Soldier that I'm really pumped to see this movie. That's it.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
You don't sound all that excited.
No, I am.
Downer.
I think this will be good.
You have your inner child in a closet again, don't you?
No, I'm just, I enjoyed Winter Soldier. I had some issues with it. I mean, I haven't loved any of the Captain America movies, but Winter Soldier I definitely liked better than the first one. And this, I think it looks good, and I enjoy that they kind of keep building these teams. I like how Ant-Man's in it. Regardless of what we say about Spider-Man, it's nice to see him kind of over in one of these groupings of Marvel movies.
It comes, what is it? It comes early May, May 16th, something like that.
May 6th?
May 6th, right. So May 6th.
We'll be chatting about it, won't we?
Yeah, I think it's on our list, film board list.
I think so.
Awesome. Well, Andy, I could find another wife easy. Yes, but not another horse.
In our streamlined world today, adventure takes wings. Planes scuttle across country at a blazing speed. Man has raced around the earth in less than 4 days. Planes roar at 400 miles an hour. Airships, streamlined trains and buses speed thousands to new frontiers. Yet well within the span of our memory, the streamliner of its day, the American Stagecoach, crossed the uncharted rugged West, bringing new people to a new country. What fascinating stories there were in the life of the Stagecoach, and in the lives of its courageous passengers who found romance in danger and understanding in strange companionships. From the adventures of these American frontier characters, John Ford has created a truly great motion picture, Stagecoach, a drama as forceful and as true as the informer, and as gripping as the hurricane.
Stagecoach, Andrew, 1939, directed by John Ford. Original story written by Edward Haycox, screenplay Dudley Nichols, starring, of course, John Wayne, Claire Trevor, Andy Devine, John Carradine, Thomas Mitchell, Louise Platt, George Bancroft, and Donald Meek. This is the second film of our second half of our 1939 series, the great, and I'm using now great in air quotes, films of 1939. How did this one hit you?
I like it. I don't love it. I like it. John Ford, I've mentioned in the last several weeks, he's not a favorite of mine. I enjoy his films well enough, but I think I after watching this again, which I hadn't seen in a long time, I think I find his films interesting to watch, but I don't get really, invested in them. I just kind of feel like I'm watching them from afar, and I enjoy what he's doing with them. But his technique and stuff, I guess I prefer different styles of technique. I know he has a technique here. There are some definite John Ford elements that I really like, the way that he does certain things. But for the most part, I watch it and I go, okay, yeah, I like it well enough. I mean, there's new stuff going on in this story that he's doing that I really respect that what he's bringing to the table here. But just stepping back as a film itself, I like it okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Watching this film really, I think, demonstrated for me just how numb my action Western nerves must be, right? I am completely enthusiastically ambivalent to this film on the whole. The performances were fun. I think the casting was terrific. I think, what we now consider stereotypes in Westerns were made more than their potboiler kind of antecedents just across the catalog. I think the stunts were great, really audacious in the third act. I think that it clearly set the stage for a leap in stunt performances, not just in Westerns, but action films as a whole. You hear the stunt community talk about what Canutt did in this film, and it's iconic. And of course, this film made John Wayne a star. But still, we're watching this as part of this so-called great year of cinema history in 1939, and so far there is one film that stands out as truly great in the entire list, and Stagecoach is not it. I think it was a good film. It scored so many individual points across the production and performance, and even the politics. But when taken on the whole, it really doesn't bubble up more than just kind of mildly entertaining. I just couldn't really get thrilled. I was never on the edge of my seat.
No, I wasn't either. I mean, I think I don't know when the people started looking at 1939 as such a great year. I'd be curious to know like when that moniker started for the year. Like, what was it about that year that people were looking back to, and what specifically was drawing them to it? And I know, is they say it's kind of like the last, the great year of the films from the studios. And so, I mean, I guess that's part of it. But even then, like, this wasn't a studio film. This was kind of made outside of the studios. It was, I believe, released through the studios, but I don't think it was made through the studios. I don't know. I'm curious what people were looking at. And I know Orson Welles, like, he saw this and felt, this was like the perfect film school for him to go make Citizen Kane 2 years later. The way that John Ford staged things, the way that he told the story, the way that he moved from scene to scene. Orson Welles apparently screened this with his cast and crew like 37 or 40 times before they got going making Citizen Kane to really kind of get schooled on the right way to make a movie. So clearly, at that particular point in time, there were elements to this film that really were critical in the development of cinematic storytelling. Okay. That being said, I think today, I just, it doesn't thrill me. It doesn't mean that stuff's not there. It's just, looking back at elements of filmmakers putting things into films that were new at the time that thrilled me more. Looking at something like The African Queen, I found more thrilling than this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, even though, the film I was thinking of is obviously Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and, that's not even supposed to be, thrilling. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and it was still edge of your seat dialogue. It was edge of your seat. But I mean, it just didn't really hold up. And maybe it's because they were trying to do something that was really audacious. It was not a set piece. It was we're going to shoot on location, and we're going to do so on a location that is so far outside the Hollywood physical plant that we're going to give ourselves some potentially unintended challenges that we're going to have to overcome as a result. And that stands out. I mean, that is an accomplishment of the film, and that may be why I'm feeling a little bit too hard. That's why I say that I think my nerves must be a little bit numbed, because that I think is one of the things that makes it just not hold up.
Well, and I think we also have to remember, trying to reset our mindset here.
Yeah.
At the time, I mean, something like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington was in a world of much more, just serious, typical types of Hollywood fare.
Right.
The Western was not. The Western was really kind of, a Tom Mix, or Harry Carey sort of shoot 'em up sort of thing. It was very much a B picture sort of thing. It wasn't a serious thing. This was really kind of the first step out of that more B movie, less serious or less goofy and just kind of action-packed, fun-filled sort of Western. This was doing something a little more serious with a Western. And so I think to that end, this film does have that going for it.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why, I mean, when we talk about this, how this film made John Wayne a star, I mean, John Wayne was stuck in those films for like 10 years. He was the B, C, D, E movie Western guy and much more cartoonish. And this film brought him out and made him a serious Western contender for decades. And as a result of John Ford really pushing to lift him out of that level of kind of a cartoony obscurity.
Yeah, at least at this particular point in time. I mean,
right.
There had been plenty of films that he'd made beforehand where he told John, nope, you're not ready yet. You're not ready yet.
Right.
And so he was no, you keep doing the props for me, because I guess he was helping him with props and stuff, and he wouldn't cast him.
What do you think of the Dudley Nichols script?
I mean, I like the script. I mean, I read a little bit of Ernest Haycox's short story. It's interesting. It's kind of a blend of that short story, which has it kind of has the Dallas and Ringo kind of characters in it. It doesn't, but I don't recall her being being a prostitute in that version. It sounds like he got the idea for kind of a prostitute character from a different, I think, French story, and there was another story where he kind of got some other ideas. From my understanding is John Ford saw this short story and then somehow had these other ideas and kind of got it all kind of put together. And Dudley Nichols crafted it into this script that, I mean, I think it actually works well. I like the characters quite a bit. I mean, there are 9 principal characters. We've already talked about how this is really where John Wayne was turned into a star, but I'm hard pressed to say it's a John Wayne picture.
No, it's not.
It really is about these 9 characters on this stagecoach ride from one town to another through Apache country.
Right. And
I like these characters. Yes, they're kind of some archetypes that we have here, but it's done in a way where it feels like, at least in today's, with today's eyes, it feels like these archetypes might be a little standard. But I think at the time they were much more. They were doing something different with these archetypes, and we had a little bit more. We had the hooker with the heart of gold sort of character. We had the Ringo kid who was kind of he was a bad guy, but we kind of learned, well, he's only a bad guy because these other bad guys had killed his family, and he's broken out of jail, even though he has kind of done some bad things, but now he's just wanting to get revenge for his family. I liked the characters. I liked what Dudley Nichols did with them, and I liked the journey they take. If there's a problem I have, it's the treatment of the Native Americans in the story. Yes, it's a product of its time, and it's definitely something that John Ford certainly dealt with in stronger, better ways over the course of his career. So that's kind of a weakness here. But that being said, I still think it's a solid script.
I do too. I think if anything, I found and I think this is another thing that makes it stand out in the time. If I kind of put myself back there, the pacing of the thing, the first and second act, I find a little bit sluggish for me. Although I do, to your point, I do find that that pacing does allow a really well-balanced treatment of every one of these 9 characters, right? Over time, every character gets his or her moment. Every character, we get to learn enough about to care, so that by the time the third act hits, and Peacock takes an arrow in the chest, that is shocking. And it's shocking even for Peacock, who has been, the sort of meekest of all the characters. Nobody can remember his name. He's the source of, he's kind of the brunt of just enough of the whiskey jokes that you're kind of surprised when you see him injured, that you care so much. And I think that is a real testament to the overall structure and to the overall pacing of the film. Even though I felt it personally a little bit sluggish, it really does work.
Yeah, and I think you've got some really nice scenes that have great character moments. And yes, the pacing might be a little off, but those are critical scenes. I love the dinner scene where they're all sitting down, and you've got that Ringo offers a seat to Dallas, and everybody's kind of shocked, and what's his name? Hatfield kind of asks Lucy, "Oh, would you like to move down here? You can be closer to the window or whatever." But it's all because nobody wants to sit by the prostitute. And Ringo's just doesn't get it. And I loved all of that with him and Dallas and just the way that those people were reacting to the whole thing. So much of that, I think, is just, it's so great.
So where does it start to, fall apart a little bit? I mean, we've talked about the establishment. I mean, this film allows us to really establish some archetypes that we see used so many times after. Does it come for you in John Ford and the way he directs, or in some cases doesn't?
I guess so. I mean, I think that's kind of the issue. And I think it's just directorial pacing, directorial storytelling. It's a really interesting thing. I mean, clearly, he is a filmmaker that people study to no end. I mean, he is one of the greats, as people say. I just don't click with what he's doing here. There's a really interesting feature on the Criterion disc of this where somebody's talking about how John Ford places his camera and how he it kind of establishes the situation. And they look at that particular scene I was talking about at the table and how John Ford really works to avoid what you would expect as kind of a shot reverse shot. So when you see a shot of Dallas and then you see a shot of Lucy, instead of having the shot of Lucy, I mean, typically what you would do is the camera would be, when you're looking at Dallas, the camera would be just kind of off of Lucy. And then when you cut back to Lucy, the camera would be kind of in the same position, but just off of Dallas. Instead of that, he moves the camera to like the opposite end of the table to look at Lucy. And so all of a sudden you're kind of shifting, it's like shifting perspectives. And it maybe that's what it is. And people seem to really enjoy that about him, how he really kind of avoids doing these expected shots. But for me, I find that it pulls me out from finding a better way to connect to the characters.
You know, I love that they pull apart this more intimate kind of dinner scene. But for me, what's worth looking at in terms of how he and Bert Glennon, cinematographer, work is really in their action stuff. It's how they are able to communicate visually movement, and I think in those cases it works really well, and that's where it starts to shine in the third act, where you see them really pushing this stagecoach, right? I mean, it's not just, moving through Apache country little by little, stopping, having a baby. This is kind of the end of the journey. They need to make it to their destination, and crossing the river is one example where we could just get the side of the stagecoach as they're lashing these giant logs onto the side of the stagecoach to give it float as the horses swim it across this river. That as soon as he puts the camera up over the driver's shoulders, kind of on axis, way up high, so we see them throwing the rocks at the horses to spur them on. I mean, that is a change in visual dynamic that is really shocking if you haven't seen it before, and I just love it. The action sequences, their ability to keep up with the horses moving apace as they are careening across the countryside, and of course some of the most barbaric horse falls. The way they capture those is tremendously great, and I think that is, for me, how I know John Ford. I never really thought much about him as a director of intimacy.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He does a great job with those sequences, and I really enjoy what he's doing there. And even though he's like all through the film, he's just, it seems like he's not really very good with following the 180 degree rule, where when you're cutting from one thing to the other, you got to stay on the same side of that 180 degree line. Otherwise it confuses the audience, because your action or your point of reference all of a sudden seems to be switching and you don't know where things are going. And he does that all through the film, whether it's people looking at each other or the action scene. And it works really well in the action scene. It just amplifies the tension as you have this stagecoach racing across the flatlands there. And it helps.
Footnote
amplify.
on that, because it fails in one key place. But finish your point.
Sure, but it does help kind of create this chaotic feel to that whole sequence. What's your footnote?
Well, just where it fails really horribly for me is in the most critical place, which is on the actual rescue by the cavalry, right? Because at that point he has changed direction, and we're not sure where these guys are coming from. Are they coming from behind? Are they coming from the front? It turns out they're coming from the front, and then the stagecoach is actually coming toward us, toward the camera, and it's sort of broken the whole left-right direction. Like we're used to seeing progress moving in one direction on the across the screen, and he sort of breaks that enough that it allows us to just sort of not trust so much. And so that was something that didn't work for me. But generally, I think it does work, and where he breaks it most flagrantly, he does it, I think, well enough to actually move across the 180 degree line, across axis with the camera, so we actually can see the transition, but not always, and that's where it's confusing.
I also had a problem in that particular scene that you just talked about, where the cavalry arrives, with the way that the music was done, because it just, the cavalry arrives, and we know that because Lucy lifts her head because she hears their bugles.
Right.
Unfortunately, the music is written in such a way where it just sounds like the bugles are part of the music. And I had no sense that the bugles were anything that was actually in the film.
I totally agree.
Until she said it, and then I'm like, oh, that was supposed to be them arriving. I had no way of knowing that
because at that point she was like catatonic. It could have just as easily been the music in her head.
Yeah, it was just not a very well defined moment musically. They should have found a better way to kind of keep that music separated. I would keep the music separated from the bugling so that we could tell better.
Yeah.
Another moment I had of John Ford that I felt was problematic, at least for me. And I know some people who praise John Ford in the way that he does things really like this. But for me, the final climactic bit of the film, when John Wayne confronts the Plummer brothers and he has the shootout in the streets of Lordsburg, we get the shot of as they're kind of coming up on each other, we get John Wayne dropping to the ground with his gun and shooting, and then we cut away from the action and we cut to Dallas. And I appreciate that we kind of cut to the more emotional side of the story, and we see her reacting to this now that she has finally kind of moved past her crappy life and has moved to a place of finding love. And all of a sudden now she's, having to feel this heartbreak. And I enjoyed that. But at the same time, it's like, this is the big kind of action finale of the film. Why are we cutting away from it here? And I was actually a little disappointed. I didn't feel like that was the strongest way to direct that particular scene.
I don't necessarily think that the intention was off, but I do agree that that it wasn't quite the best way to shoot it. For me, I wanted to see more of that shootout, and I expected a shootout. We got the chase, we got the all of the stereotypes, the horse stereotypes, and we needed a good shootout. And when he hits the ground, it happens across, what do you think, 10 frames? Like, he hits the ground so fast and we are gone. We are out of that sequence. I like the punchline to that sequence. I really like the way the guy walks back, stumbles into the bar and falls on his face. I like that payoff. But my goodness, it felt like the execution of the gunfight was so fast you just couldn't keep up with it.
No. Yeah.
All right.
It was not my favorite. And I guess this is just John Ford. He's a hard person for me to connect with. I watched an interview with him. He's just like this old grump, and he's just so dismissive of things. It's such a strange personality, and I have a hard time understanding from him if he really has some strong artistic talent that just is natural, and it's almost like he dismisses it because it's just there and he doesn't have to think about it, or if he's just kind of lucking his way through his career doing all this stuff. I would assume the former, since so many people constantly praise his work. But man, I mean, he just is so dismissive, and you hear actors talk about him, and it seems like he's this bully who kind of would bully his actors into getting performances out of them and stuff. I'm just like, gosh, I just don't know if I like this guy that much. But.
Yeah. It's hard to be a fan when that's their sort of cultural memory.
Right.
It's really hard to be a fan. It reminds me to be nicer to people.
Right.
You never know. And it's, 80 years.
He did say there's an interview with Louise Platt, who played Lucy, an interview with her actually not too long ago, just before she passed away, I think. She was talking about it because I think this was one of her first films. I think she had come from the stage and was the youngest actor on the set at the time. And so she was really nervous about this. And so she acted her first shot at the dining table, is what they first filmed. She did her lines. John Ford came over to her, and he leaned toward her and said, "I don't want a Virginia accent. I don't want any charm. This gal is cold as a rock." And she said, "Look, it says it in the script. She's a Virginian with a musical accent, charming and polite." And his reply was, "That's Dudley's direction, the screenwriter, not mine. I think a movie's for the eye. Dudley thinks it's for the ear. His next film will no doubt be 3 hours long. I like a minimum of dialogue. Dudley loves verbiage." And so she went back and played it cold, and that's, that worked. That was what he was looking for. So the one thing that I really love about John Ford is he has some shots that seem to be pretty consistent with the way that he likes to tell his stories. He loves getting these shots of, like, you get a dark interior looking through a door, and you got like just this, there's a couple great shots here. The one that stands out for me is when I think Dallas walks down the hallway and out the door at the end, and then Ringo goes after her, but it's just this dark hallway with this glowing white door at the end, and he kind of goes through, and he does that a couple times, and it's just such a great thing. He does that great in The Searchers a few times. I mean, it's a nice way to kind of separate the interior life from the exterior, and I like what he's doing there. And he also does that through windows, where you've got like that great shot toward the beginning when Lucy is talking with her friends inside the hotel, and they're talking about Hatfield, and he's this gambler, and she turns and looks, and he's standing outside. We see him standing outside watching her, and she turns and looks at him, and he kind of turns and walks away. And it's just like there's great separation, and I love that he does that. So that's definitely a John Ford thing, that definitely a trope that he puts in here, and does a good job here with Bert.
I think his introductions too, his visual introductions, particularly John Wayne. I mean, when he does that sort of dolly slam in to introduce us to John Wayne on his right on his face while he's holding the saddle in the middle of the desert, I thought that was just that was terrific and dramatic and just really lovely. And again, back to his action stuff. Some of the places he put that camera in and around the stagecoach they just blew me away. Under the stagecoach just blew me away. I thought at the time, in particular, I mean, these aren't GoPros. Getting these shots, I couldn't figure out how he was able to do it.
No, I agree. There's a lot of great stuff that they were doing here to really try to put things in different places. I mean, thinking back to when we were talking about High Noon, which it wasn't all on a stagecoach or a wagon, but
right.
There was a little bit. A little bit. And there was one shot that really stood out to us.
It was the across the wheel shot.
Yeah, it was kind of that, funky position on the side of the wagon. It was great. And you look at something like this, which happened before that. It's like, wow, there's so many more options to choose from.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Production design. What'd you think of the Old West? And I think this is particularly interesting in the context of the discussion around location in Monument Valley.
Yes and no. I mean, I did want to say, as far as production design goes, that this was like John Ford and his production designer. They put ceilings in here, and it's definitely a key point. You definitely see a lot of ceilings as you're looking around here. It was Alexander Tolubov who did the art direction here. And it's kind of a precursor to Citizen Kane, and everybody talked about Orson Welles and the ceilings, the fact that you see ceilings in the sets. It was done here first, folks. And, this is kind of where Orson Welles got it. So good to see that here.
I agree. Why did you say yes and no? I felt like you were going to contradict me about something.
No. Well, because you were talking about it's about the exteriors here, and I just wanted to throw that one interior bit in.
Oh, I see.
Yes, but yes, all exteriors. Right. There's a lot of great exteriors here.
Well, and that's one of the things I think is so interesting about this, and it's the story of Harry Goulding. Did you read about Harry Goulding?
Oh, yes.
Harry Goulding is a kind of a popular dude in the 30s.
Pretty interesting story, yeah.
Very interesting story. So, we already mentioned this was a location Western. It really was the first great kind of location Western. And I found it really interesting that much of the, I think, of the intention of moving it to the West, I think discovering this beautiful location of Monument Valley is, that had been unsullied, unspoiled, undiscovered, was great for the film, clearly. But the fact that Ford hated producers so much and executives, studio executives so much, that he wanted to shoot on location that was really hard to get to, that was dirty, that was hot and rugged, so that producers wouldn't want to go there, I found that really delightful.
And again, going back to the grumpy John
Ford. He's just a grumpy John Ford. So as much as I think the intention of shooting in the West was good for the film, I think it was also really for Ford to do this. In any case, this Harry Goulding fellow, he and his wife Mike had ended up out here in Navajo land in Monument Valley, and they discovered this beautiful place and became really close to the Navajo people and learned the language, incredibly difficult language, really became kind of a centerpiece to their lives there. And then the economy trashed, and they needed to, he said there was no work coming through, so he had this idea, maybe we can go sell the idea of shooting movies in this area to Hollywood, and introduced it, or certainly facilitated it. Apparently, according to the history, there are different histories about who actually discovered Monument Valley, whether it was Ford, whether it was, producers, but whether it was John Wayne even. But it is undisputed that it was Harry Goulding and his relationship with the Navajo that he was able to facilitate a relationship that allowed this movie to be made there. Not only to be made there, but for the Navajo people to participate in the film, to ride the horses, to be a principal in the production of it.
Get paid union wages.
And get paid union wages, exactly. I think that is a real testament to just how much Goulding really loved this relationship. And in fact, we talk about Grumpy Ford. It is reputed that the relationship between Ford and Goulding was the only really nice, respectful relationship that Ford had. That he really respected Goulding and ended up shooting other movies there.
He shot 7 movies here, I think it's an interesting thing because there was definitely some. I think John Ford respected the Navajo who live in the Monument Valley area. But I feel like there had to be some level of kind of that meta sense that he's also there, just like the white man kind of exploiting the Native Americans across the country as they kind of took over. He was coming in here and exploiting these Navajos to make his movies, and he cast these Navajo to play all different Native Americans, whether it was Apache or I think we see a Cheyenne at the beginning, or just anyone. He just kind of kept them. It's just like, we'll just kind of cast you as the kind of the eponymous Native American characters, and just use you however I needed to. And I think that's kind of what he did. And I think that they, there was a lot of money coming in, and so it's one of those things where there's a kind of a yin and yang to it, I definitely think. But all of that being said, I think that Goulding and the deals that he made with the Navajo to film in Monument Valley up on the Arizona-Utah border did end up kind of creating this expectation kind of what people thought of as the Old West. And John Ford shot so many films here, and a lot of other people came to film here. It kind of became that thing to represent that. I mean, geez, we talked about National Lampoon's Vacation. That filmed here.
That was here, yeah.
Yeah, right. It's this very popular place to shoot because it looks so good. And I mean, I can't tell you how often I'm looking for crew people to go work on a project, and they're up in the Monument Valley area filming a commercial or whatever it is, because people always want to go film there. It's still just incredibly popular, and it's beautiful, and you can still go there. I mean, Goulding's is still there. You can go to gouldings.com and you can make a reservation and just go check it out and hang out up there. It's a cool little corner to look at, and it's one of those things. I feel like there's always going to be a little good and bad as far as the way that the white man kind of came in and took over America. That being said, it is a truly beautiful area.
Well, it's a truly beautiful area, and I think what's really cool about the story is it's all in the heart of this guy, Harry Goulding, and his relationship with the Navajo. That is what's worth celebrating, and the problem happened as usual when the rest of commerce kind of and sort of capital production came into the picture. But I think it's just worth noting that it all started with sort of the right intention, with a guy who as far as I gathered, had a real sort of positive and healthy relationship and one of mutual respect at the time, which was hard to come by.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, can we talk about Yakima Canutt? We
should.
Man, this guy knew how to throw himself around, and he's like the villain in the animal rights story. If there was a musical about animal rights violations, it would be the story of Yakima Canutt.
Yeah, boy, dark.
The good stuff. Yakima Canutt was a former silent film actor who apparently had kind of a funky voice and didn't make the transition to talkies. So he became a champion rodeo star and eventually back into acting as a stunt person. And is incredibly talented at what he does. And when you look at jumping from horse to horse, the sequence on the stagecoach, when you look at the stagecoach slide under the coach part, which is widely reputed to be the scene that is taken as an homage in Indiana Jones and a number of other films that have done something similar, of the character sliding across the ground of a vehicle or stagecoach moving at full speed, coming out the other side. Incredibly dangerous and really well respected in the stunt community. Yes?
Yeah. Absolutely. It's amazing the stuff that he would do here. And we talked about him, I think, on the Gone with the Wind episode, because
I think we did.
Because he did something in that as well. I feel like something with the burning of Atlanta. I can't remember exactly, but he was around doing a lot of stunts for a lot of films, and he kind of set the bar pretty high at an early time in cinema as far as how to do great stunts. So he's definitely one of those guys. And I feel like when the Academy finally gets around to getting a best stunt performer or whatever it's going to be Oscar, I feel like they should call it the Yakima,
which is better than the Canutt.
The Canutt.
So he is known as being an iconic stunt performer, but he's also known as the guy who hurt animals.
Yes, the running W.
Yeah, in particular horses. Were you familiar with the running W before you read up on him?
I knew that they came up with something to make the horses fall. That's something that we talked about back when I watched this in film, Intro to Film, in my first year of college.
How did they portray it in your first year of college?
They didn't. They just said, they came up with something to trip the horses is basically, I think, kind of the extent of it. I don't think we had as much detail then as we do now.
It's not very nice if you're a horse. Apparently, the wires are attached to the horse's front legs.
This is what they call the running W.
Yes, and they're threaded through a ring on a cinch and secured to buried dead weights, such that when the horse runs at full speed to the end of those wires, the front legs are yanked out from under him. And so what we see in Stagecoach are these incredibly dramatic falls, as these, and they're sort of ridiculous falls, right? They don't kind of fit physics, because what we see is people on the stagecoach shooting at these Native Americans that are riding on horses, and when they shoot them on the horses, you would expect them to fall off like backwards or sideways, right? But instead, the horse falls down on its neck really, really hard, and that's what the running W does.
It's like the horse gets shot in the chest or something and collapses, but what it's supposed to look like, I think.
It's sure, but then they leave the camera running too long, because the number of times when the horse falls and then gets up and runs away means that just can't be possible. Right? That we can't have that assumption that the horse is somehow injured. And so the physics of it just fails left and right, but the effect is incredibly dramatic. And this was thanks to the diabolical ingenuity of Yakima Canutt. inventing this running W. It's just a terrible thing. And we see it all over the place in this film in particular. There's so many horses chasing the stagecoach across the third act, and many of them tumble as a result of this trick.
Yeah, it's pretty gruesome to watch. I mean, it shocked me every time I'd see the horse get up. I'm like, how is the horse getting up after that? I mean, geez. I mean, they really take a beating. It just looks like they just, I don't even know. It just looks horrible.
Yeah. So was it Yakima who was also responsible for getting the stagecoach across the river? Was that his idea?
That was his idea. Yeah, he had it on a cable and just kind of pulled it along the cable as it went across, so it didn't float down the river at all. The horses could just kind of pull it straight across, and so I mean, he was a clever fella. His expertise really in rigging makes him just sort of a legendary character in the stunt community. What about let's start running through these the 9 principal characters. Yes, definitely.
John Wayne as Ringo the Kid. Again, we've already said this isn't really a John Wayne film, but he's definitely in it.
He's definitely in it. And, I mean, in the end, I feel like the way that all the other characters disperse and it leaves the focus to be on him and Dallas's relationship, it does end up, even though you're really focused on the 9, it does end up feeling like it's kind of their story.
Yeah.
I mean, he comes in the last. He's the last character that we meet on this trip, so we don't get him for the whole first act, really.
Yeah, in terms of screen time, this is much more of a Claire Trevor film. Right. He is. Did you see the one of the Criterion pieces was ironically Peter Bogdanovich talking about John Wayne. He said, John Wayne had called himself. They say he's an action star. He says, I'm not an action star. I'm a reaction star, and that this was the film that really got him that gave him that name or that nickname, because of the number of sequences in which we don't see that the only reason John Wayne is still in the sequence is because he's reacting to it, where he doesn't have anything really to say at all. He just we get to watch him respond to the rest of the sequence. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think that seems to be a pretty valid point about John Wayne. I mean, he's never been one of my favorites, but I mean, I can enjoy him. I think that I get wrapped up in a lot of John Wayne's personal politics and the way that he dealt with things like the blacklist and things like that in Hollywood. I have a lot of problems with some of his personal choices. But I mean, I can enjoy watching a John Wayne film. Mm-hmm. I can separate those in my mind, and I don't think he's an actor that I really see a lot out of. He always feels like he's just John Wayne in the film, but he's still fun to watch, I guess.
What about Claire Trevor?
Man, I just love Claire Trevor. She broke our hearts singing that song in Key Largo when we talked about that. And man, I think that she's just so good as Dallas. I mean, you really feel just the pain that she has in getting kind of pushed out and dismissed and looked down upon. And you never see her, she's kind of that hooker with a heart of gold sort of character. You never see her, obviously you're not going to see her kind of doing her craft back in the film in the 30s, but you don't get a sense of her outside of just being kind of a good person, just stuck in a really bad situation. And I really like that character, and I think that she portrays that pain really well. Well,
you can kind of see that with every character in here. That's one of the things that's so nice about the way they use these archetypes, is they are all fundamentally misunderstood by the system. And she's the first one we get to see that, where, she is kicked out by the ladies of the community who, the ladies of integrity, who kick her out. But, her, as she says, I just want to live. Is there anything wrong with me just living? And it's just so sad to kind of watch her have to live in that kind of ideologue. So I thought she was great.
Yeah, she's really fantastic. I mean, to me, she really is kind of the reason that I would want to return to this, because I really enjoyed watching her character through the course of it.
I agree. What about Andy Devine?
He is that guy who just has a voice. He kind of has that voice that's perpetually cracking. That just is, there's the character in I have to look now in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That it's the little cartoon bullet character.
Oh yeah.
When he finally pulls it out right at the end there. Nope. Andy Devine had died long before then. But he was Friar Tuck in Robin Hood.
In Robin Hood.
Animated Robin Hood.
That's what I was thinking. That's where I thought you were going with that. That he was. That was because that's how I remember him.
Right.
Is much later than in his career, certainly in my life.
But the bullet character definitely seems like it's meant to be kind of an Andy Devine.
Yeah, it was an homage.
Yeah, right, exactly, with that kind of cracked voice. And he's just great to listen to him talk. And he's just, I almost found like him to be kind of the one who was always kind of surprising me, talking about his Mexican wife and just his life and back in Lordsburg and everything. I just really enjoyed his character quite a bit.
He's in what I remember as a really the only film that I remember that is classified as madcap and also really boring. It's a mad world. Do you ever see that?
Yeah, I mean, I remember enjoying it. I don't remember loving it, but
3.5 hours that movie was.
I know, it was a long one.
Anyway, he was in that.
And he'd been in a number of other John Ford films, like Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, and stuff like that. So,
who else is on our list? John Carradine, Hatfield.
He looks like a walking skeleton here.
Yeah,
it's a really interesting character because he's the gambler we get right away, but then he shows himself to be, a real gentleman. I mean, a real gentleman in the refined sort of way where he does everything he can to kind of help Lucy while still looking down upon Dallas. But I enjoyed that, we, get a sense that, this is this bad guy. But then we find out, he had served in Lucy's father's army and there's a lot more to him. He was a very mysterious character, but I thought that Carradine did nice with him.
He's got 350 credits on his IMDb page.
Busy man.
It's not so bad as the guy we talked about last week. What was his name with over 1,000 credits? 1,500 credits.
Right. Yeah.
But he was in a lot of stuff. He died in '88 and still ended up in movies through 1995 that I guess he had already shot. But he's one of those that I think I remember much more later. Seeing him in some of the more sort of pulpy things that he ended up doing, but
he was in The Grapes of Wrath and also in Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. So another guy who'd worked a number of times with John Ford.
Yeah. Let's see. How about Thomas Mitchell, Doc?
Yeah, this was his busy year.
Yeah, we have talked about him a bunch in 1939.
I know. I think this may be the last time, unfortunately. It makes me sad. But, I mean, he was in Gone with the Wind. He was in Only Angels Have Wings. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. He was also in The Hunchback of Notre Dame. We're not talking about that one. But, yeah, he's just a busy man. He won Best Supporting Actor for this performance here, beating out Harry Carey and Claude Rains, both in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and then also Brian Ahern in Juarez and Brian Donlevy in Beau Geste. I haven't seen those last two, but I don't know. I don't know if they gave it to him because he just appeared in so much stuff and they're like, oh, well, we really enjoyed him and we should give him an award or what. But I mean, personally, I probably would have gone with Claude Rains.
Absolutely.
Either that, or I would have said, Thomas Mitchell is great, but I mean, personally, I kind of preferred him in Mr. Smith.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that was what I was that was my perspective too, that this was, I don't know, it sort of feels like even then the Academy was still all up for clean and sober stories. And,
yeah, right.
This was kind of him. He was the drunk, and he was the drunk doctor, no less, who gets sober to deliver a baby. Like, that's a hero story that I think the Academy was soft for.
Well, for me, it was the moment toward the end when he stands up to Luke to warn him from taking the shotgun out into the streets, because having a gunfight out in the streets was okay, but not if you bring a shotgun, and then it's murder.
It's murder.
I was like, this is Western rules I don't quite get, but okay.
But I love it even more that at the end of that standoff, he gets the guy to put down the shotgun and then literally wipes his brow. Like, right. Wow, that was stressful. Woo.
Yeah. Well, and I love that he looks at the bartenders just like, don't ever let me do that again.
Yeah.
And I wrote in my notes, I'm like, is that line why he won the Oscar? Because, it was actually, I liked that one quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, who knows? But he's great. I just love seeing Thomas Mitchell.
Louise Platt.
Yeah, playing Lucy. I already talked about her a little bit as far as kind of getting coached by John Ford. The only other thing I wanted to say about her is, man, is she quiet when she's pushing a baby out. It's like, geez.
I feel like we can speak with some authority on that. That is really quiet.
Yeah. Like they go into the back room. That's all. You don't hear a thing.
Yep.
Not a peep.
But she was mostly catatonic throughout the film. Like she was not in a good space.
No, she is like John Ford wanted, very cold, and I liked that, and I liked her development, and I like how at the end, even when she's laying on the cot as they are carrying her away, and she talks to Dallas, she's still, you can tell that she wants to kind of apologize and kind of make good, but she still is like really kind of closed off, and it's hard for her to do that, and I appreciate that in the way they wrote that character.
Yeah, I think that's on that we disagree. I found her a non-entity in this film, and I just every time we had to focus on a bit of her story, I was looking at my watch. I didn't see it. I saw the quiet delivery as misdirection on the part of John Ford. That he just was not able to bring out a character that for me was worth paying attention to.
Yeah. So
how about George Bancroft as Marshall Curley?
He's great. I really enjoy just his bit. I mean, he feels like one of those faces that's just been around forever. I mean, I think he had also been in other John Ford things. I think, what was it before this? Wasn't it? Which one was it?
Well, I don't know.
Thunderbolt?
No, before Stagecoach?
Sternberg. Yeah. That he did with Ford. I thought he did another John Ford thing.
I don't know.
Before this, but I could be wrong. Anyway. But he does have a great face.
Yes, he does. I think most I don't know. The most fun character for me is poor Donald Meek, plays Samuel Peacock, and nobody can ever remember his name. We already brought him up. He's another kind of iconic face.
And he's got the perfect name.
Yeah, right.
To play Peacock, because he is so meek.
He is delightful in this thing. I sort of wish we had more of him. He plays the whiskey. What was his job? Did you understand what his job was? Well,
he's a whiskey salesman.
But they used a different word.
They did.
Whiskey beater or something like that?
I can't remember now.
Anyway, I didn't know I don't know, is there a process with the whiskey that you beat it at any point in making it? I've never heard of this. Anyhow. Burton Churchill plays Ellsworth Henry Gatewood. It's kind of an interesting thing. This is another one of those stereotypes that kind of gets turned. He's the banker. He's the, what's good for the community is good for the bank, and good for the country is good for the bank, or maybe it's the other way around. Anyway, he ends up being the crook. So it's kind of a timely film.
Yeah, it's, man, I know that just made me laugh. I'm just like, boy, nobody's ever just liked bankers. Yeah. They just...
Have we learned nothing?
It's funny, in the old, the movie booklet that came out when the movie was released, they say about him, a pillar of society, but the termites had gotten to him, the termites of greed.
Jeez.
Oh, that's great.
How about the Lieutenant Blanchard, Tim Holt, Tom Tylers, Luke Plummer, and of course Chief John Bigtree.
It's great seeing Tim Holt pop up. He looks like such a baby here. I mean, gosh, he's just he pops up in, a few years later after Orson Welles did Citizen Kane and he did Magnificent Ambersons. He's in that. And I think he's just one of those just great actors who's just always fun to watch. And it's fun seeing him here when he looks like a little baby and then going back to something like Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
I was just going to say, we talked about him as Curtin. Yeah,
and just seeing him there. He's just one of those guys who just has a great face, and it's so funny seeing him here when he looks so young.
Absolutely. Well, and we could say the same about John Wayne. He looked really young in this film.
He did look really young. Yes, he did. Yeah.
Anybody else you're excited about before we move through it?
I think the only other person I was going to mention was Chief John Bigtree.
Yes, sir.
He is. At the time of this, my understanding is he was like the most popular Native American actor at the time, and we see him right at the beginning. He plays the Cheyenne scout at the beginning of the film, who is filling these guys in on the fact that Geronimo is out there, and everything. But
he's Cheyenne. He hates the Apache.
That's right. So they don't have to worry.
Yeah.
But it's just it was. I don't really have much to say about him other than he was kind of a big Native American actor at the time, and I don't see that many credits for him. But even 1939, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 films: Destry Rides Again, Drums Along the Mohawk, The Oregon Trail, Susanna of the Mounties, and this. So
well, and look at his list of credits though, and look at how many of them are uncredited Indian.
Yeah, right.
Right. Talk about a sad sign of the times right there.
Yep, definitely.
Okay. There you go. You said the music for you was, well, you were speaking specifically about that sequence where the music was meh. Overall, did you find the music any better for the rest of the film?
Well, I didn't say it was meh at that place. I just felt that it was misused the way that
the horns and the...
Yeah, it blended everything incorrectly, I felt. But I John Ford apparently doesn't like overscoring or underscoring. He doesn't like having score in his films, but he really loves folk songs. And this score is really just made up of tons of folk songs, like I Dream of Jeannie with the light brown hair, and just tons of others. It's just coursing through the film, and as you listen to it, you can really hear all the different tunes in there if you're familiar with the songs. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting way to do it. I don't know if it's if I'm a huge fan of it. It was also done in like How the West Was Won. I like it enough, I guess. And I think the music it works here, but I feel like I would prefer it done in other ways.
Yeah, I agree with you. I found it not terribly memorable. Mostly because I already know the tunes, and I didn't find that I agree with you. When I noticed the music, it was usually because I was noticing something that struck me sideways, and otherwise I didn't notice the music. So,
yeah.
All right. Other things that we need to remember to talk about with this film, Andy. What are those things?
The only other thing that we were talking about kind of the concept of this film and the story, it just felt like, we didn't really sell it that well as far as another thing that Ford was doing here. And that's really kind of showing kind of this expanding of America and the growth of America. And, these 9 people kind of are representing kind of a bit of culture as America is growing. And I think that's, it's an interesting way to kind of step outside of this film and look at it and going, okay, yeah, he can be kind of putting a spin on kind of the founding of our country and people with problems and how nobody's perfect, and this kind of growth of this country and how people kind of work to get along in order to make America great. I think there's something interesting there. I don't know if I've really thought about it long enough to really kind of lock it in, but I feel like there is something there that Ford is doing.
Well, it sort of wears its symbolism on its sleeve, right? It starts when the baby's born, and the number of times that we cut back to the baby during the Act 3 escapades, the action, as the baby is this symbol of innocence that is thrusting across this wild, untamed land. Right, it is just a little white baby that has no malintention, and it's just supposed to stand up and represent that we have that we bring greatness to this land.
You know, especially considering this is a Western and Westerns weren't serious at the time. And I liked that they were actually doing something different with a Western. So, I mean, I appreciate it on that level. The only other thing that I thought was worth mentioning was how other than the fact that these Plummer brothers either had a death wish or they were kind of in this situation where they're like, well, Ringo's here, we're going to die. I guess we have no choice other than to walk out and face our death. But geez, like every sign is telling them to not do this. You know, he's playing poker and he gets aces and eights, the dead man's hand, you know, and then he and his two idiot brothers are out like walking and they see a black cat run past him and his brother tries shooting at the black cat and he misses.
And he misses.
He's like 4 feet away.
He missed the cat.
It's like, God, these guys are missing every sign that this is a bad thing to walk into. Oh,
that is so great. They're all idiots. That is, they lampoon themselves. It was too good.
It was like these guys really are just missing it. They should just not go into this shootout.
You wonder again if it's just those isolated elements that as they shoot, shoot out of order or out of sequence. That maybe at the end you wonder if John Ford sits there and watches the whole film all the way through and says, "Gosh, I probably shouldn't have put all those back to back."
Right.
What else do we need to talk about with this film, Andy? It seems like it has been remade a couple of times.
Well, and you did mention awards earlier. It did win, like I said, for Thomas Mitchell, Best Supporting Actor. It also won. It was nominated for Best Picture, Director, Black and White Cinematography, Art Direction, and Best Film Editing. And and it did win for Best Music Scoring. So, which
is weird.
Yeah, because I feel like I thought Gone with the Wind won that. Why am I misremembering that? Best Wizard of Oz won Best Original Song. Wizard of Oz won Best Music Original Score. Stagecoach won Best Music Scoring, as in it took existing music
and scored it against film.
He took the music and stuff, but Mr. Smith Goes to Washington also fell into that category. And did they do that with Mr. I guess I can't remember the music in Mr. Smith now.
I don't either.
Well, there you go.
There you go. It's a mystery. It's an early Oscars mystery.
Very strange little thing. Yeah,
that is a very strange thing.
But this film, like you said, it was remade. It's you briefly mentioned Walter Wanger, who was the producer, or Wanger, I think is how you actually say it.
Yeah,
I've heard it.
Please don't say it, ways. Wanger.
Wanger. Yes.
Please don't say that.
Wanger. He's the one who produced this film. Even though it's interesting, as a producer of the film, he actually wrote a letter to somebody about some of the publicity for this and said, which was I really like to see. He's just like, I really want people to just be aware that I want the credit to go where credit is due. This is John Ford's achievement. It was interesting to see a producer saying that. Like, wow, that's really generous. So I kind of like that. But yeah, this film, it changed hands a number of times because he kind of produced it outside of the system. And I think at the time when it was released, United Artists released it. And then with their 7-year rights rule, they had to surrender distribution and back to Walter Wanger. And then a bunch of different independent companies produced it took care of it for a while. It ended up, the copyright was renewed by 20th Century Fox. And while they held it, they did a remake in 1966 of Stagecoach. And then it's switched around a bunch of other times. And I think right now it's with Shout Factory and Warner Brothers, I think. So who knows? But the film itself, it was, all prints apparently were lost or destroyed. And they actually had to make the print that we're seeing today. John Ford had one positive print that had never been through a projector. And so he let them use that to make a new negative. And that's the negative that they've been using since to get it out into the world. It's unfortunate, though, because even that has suffered a lot of damage. And so
it's not good.
No, it's hard to find there's not that pristine print sitting out there. And so it's unfortunate. It's interesting that this is despite any issues that people may have with some of these studios, there are benefits like maintaining of some of these classic films, the actual stock of films that they use to print them.
It did make me wonder, as much as people talk about this, why there hasn't been more of a lobby for a complete restoration. Like, this was not, it doesn't look good. And I think so much of the texture of, Monument Valley is missing in just these, just a terrible transfer in some sequences. And so I was moved nearly, Andy, to write a strongly worded Amazon review.
Well, it is funny though. I mean, because this, this actually is the restored version. I mean, I don't know where you ended up watching it, but the version I watched was the Blu-ray that Criterion has out there.
Mine was the Criterion Hulu.
So it's probably the same thing.
Yeah.
But they found a 1942 nitrate duplicate negative that showed exceptional detail, grayscale, and clarity. That was the primary source for the new HD digital transfer, because they believe it's the best surviving film material of Stagecoach. And so, but even then, it still suffers a lot of scratches and debris, and they did hundreds of hours of restoration to actually remove lots of damage already. So imagine what it looked like before.
Yeah, right.
This film, it was successful. It cost $531,374 to make at the time.
All right.
Very specific budgeting numbers provided by Walter Wanger.
That's pretty good.
That's about $8.9 million in adjusted today's dollars. All told, it ended up making about $1.1 million, adjusted about $18.5 million. So it ended up grossing in adjusted profit per finished minute of about $99,000 per finished minute. So, little Stagecoach did pretty well for itself.
All right, Andy, we should probably rank it.
Let's do it.
All right. Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel and sign into your account there, because by now I'm sure you have one. And you just do a little search. Do a little search for Stagecoach 1939. It'll pop right up, and you get ready for the Filmo matchup of the century right here. Stagecoach versus...
First up, Stagecoach versus The Bad Seed.
Stagecoach.
Yeah, totally Stagecoach. Stagecoach, or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yes, absolutely. Eternal Sunshine. Stagecoach or Sunshine?
Sunshine.
Yeah, I'll do Sunshine. I have third act issues still, but boy, there's.
But it balances out because I have first and second act issues with.
That's funny. Stagecoach or The Bourne Identity?
Bourne Identity.
Bourne Identity. Stagecoach or Viridiana?
This is only moderately trickier. I'm still going to go with Viridiana.
Yeah, me too. Stagecoach or Mad Max? Mad Max for me.
Mad Max, yeah, hands down.
Stagecoach or Hot Fuzz? Absolutely Hot Fuzz.
Absolutely.
And let's see, Stagecoach or Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Oh Brother.
Oh Brother. It's kind of a late end Oh Brother block. That left it at number 116. So this might be, this is coming in like pretty much smack dab in the middle.
That's
right
exactly
between Oh Brother
it.
and The Bad Seed. This may be our new block, Pete. It might be the Stagecoach block now.
Wow. You know what? That's exactly where it is, because moving into Letterboxd and our star rating, this is a 3-star movie. And to me, a 3-star movie is right in the middle of our overall ranking.
Yeah.
It just feels right.
For me, this, I don't know. I'm kind of torn going back between 3.5. I think I'll go 3.5. So I'm just a slightly bit higher than you.
What is it that pushes it over for you? You have a bigger problem with John Ford than I do.
I do, but at the same time, that Claire Trevor. There's a lot of good stuff with Claire Trevor in here, and I really do. Despite my problems with John Ford, I really like the stuff that they're doing here. I like these characters. I think there's a lot of really great just a blend of these characters coming together throughout the story.
I do too. I just a little bit less.
And that's okay.
All right.
And Pete, there's one thing I totally forgot to mention.
Oh, okay.
Where is the shot with the car in the background? I watched the chase scene so many times trying to look in the back of every single shot, because supposedly in the background of one shot you can see a car driving across the background on a road far in the distance.
I didn't see it either. I did see the shadow of the camera.
Yeah, on the guy.
On the guy.
It's
on
crossing
his back.
the creek.
Yeah, on the creek,
river,
right.
yeah.
But I didn't see a car.
Yeah, I heard about it, and now I'm wondering if it's really there or if it's just a rumor.
Yeah.
So if anyone knows which shot it is, let us know.
So where do we go from here, Andy, in our journey through 1939?
We're going to talk about a film that I really love, and I'm quite excited to watch it because I know it's a great 1939 film, and I want more of those. And it is none other than The Wizard of Oz.
I have a sad story to tell you, and me too, because I have that same feeling as you do with this movie. It's sweet, and I get a lot of warmth out of sweet in this film. But I told my kids that I was going to put this on for family movie night because, oh, hallelujah, another movie that we can watch as a family.
Right.
And I get this from my daughter. Oh, well, that's boring. What? I know. So there you go.
That is too funny.
I'm going to go to bed.
All right. I'm going to go get a job as a stagecoach driver so one day I can make enough money to marry my Mexican girl, Juliana.
Andy, Amazon doth deliver this week.
Dothn't it always?
It doth delivereth. I've got Pathetic Chase from Ibunga Tembe in 2010 with a 1-star who says, how are descendants of Native Americans feel about this movie? Indians, in quotes, are given no agency, no humanity. They make noise like animals and swarm like bees without any rationality. The chase adds insult to injury. As I watched the scene trying to get into the movie, I kept telling myself, why don't they just shoot the horses if they want to stop the stagecoach? Why depict Indians in such a dumb way as people without intelligence and common sense when they knew the land better than the Anglo-immigrants? Other than that, I understand why people have long liked and cherished this movie.
All right, Ibunga.
I love that last line. I'm surprised you're not laughing harder at that last line. I even delivered it funny.
It was good.
It wasn't good enough, Andy. I almost want to do it again.
You start over.
No, I'm not going to do it. No, okay. Now I'm hurt.
Did I crush your soul?
No, I know what's happening. I know that you probably weren't even paying attention. You're out there.
No, I know what's happening.
Playing Minesweeper.
Pouring blood from your head again. Well, the funny part about Ibungas is, you look at the comments, and somebody actually said they were called savages for a reason. It's like, wow, really?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, I've got a 1-star also. By A. Niles, who hated it, as he said, hated it. I hate all John Wayne stuff. I hate John Wayne, and I don't usually wish hate on anyone, but I wish he hadn't.
That's it?
And then he kind of leaves it there. Just like, he stopped mid-thought, like there was going to be more, but...
Oh, Niles.
Yes.
Thanks, Amazon.
It is hard to believe we have been having in-depth conversations about movies since 2011.
You are telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you.
and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
Season 5 had some great adaptations, like our Meryl Streep Oscar-nominated performances series. We covered adaptations like Kramer vs. Kramer, Sophie's Choice, and The French Lieutenant's Woman.
It's a real Sophie's Choice between those books. You see what I did there?
Yeah. And I don't think it's quite at the level of a real Sophie's Choice.
We also did Snowpiercer for our Bong Joon-ho series, adapted from the French graphic novel Le Transpersonnage. Man, I love that movie.
We had our 2-part 1939 series that included adaptations like Gone with the Wind, Ninotchka, The Women, and The Hound of the Baskervilles.
A number of those 1939 movies, like Goodbye, Mr. Chips, also tied into our recent 1940 Academy Award Best Picture nominee series.
Our Naughty Children horror series had creepy adaptations like The Bad Seed, Village of the Damned, The Innocents, and Children of the Corn.
For our Hayao Miyazaki series, we talked about his take on Lupin III with The Castle of Cagliostro, plus his own The Wind Rises.
Some great listener choice picks too, Viridiana and The Great Escape.
And for our David Mamet Wright series, The Verdict, The Untouchables, and Glengarry Glen Ross.
Plus, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang from our Shane Black series, adapted from Brett Halliday's novel, Bodies Are Where You Find Them.
Dive into the sources for all of these at thenextreel.com/originals.
Every book you buy helps support the show. Check out thenextreel.com/originals today and find your next read.